The Florida Gators and Billy Napier need to hire an offensive coordinator if they ever want to succeed in Gainesville.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Happy Friday. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work for New York Giants on SI. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And this has been a seemingly endless conversation that we've had about Billy Napier and the Florida Gators and what Billy Napier has to do in order to find success, right? And it comes back all the time to he needs to hire an offensive coordinator, right? He needs an offensive play caller. He needs this. He needs that. Offensive coordinator is the one thing that I think the overwhelming majority of the fan base actually agrees on. It's just a matter of who it is and to what extent. You know, do you have to swing for the fences? Do you have to go low and just get someone there? Here's one thing that I hate hearing and I hate seeing, and it drives me kind of batty, all right? It's when people say Billy Napier's scheme can't work. No, that's not true at all. Billy Napier's scheme can work. It is not the scheme that's bad. In terms of looking at 12 personnel, heavy usage there, pre-snap motion, wide zone runs, we see it all the time, right? And it's an NFL and college thing. It's not just that only one side can run this scheme. It's not anything like that. The scheme is fine. The issue is the play caller of this scheme. That's the problem. And Billy is a really bad play caller when it comes to actually having a feel for the game, right? When it comes time to, you can go back to 2022, 2023, 2024 if you want, okay? There's multiple times where it feels like Billy just doesn't know what to do in certain moments. For example, the middle eight. If you don't know the middle eight are the final 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half. Oftentimes, if you win the point differential in that area, you win the game. It's a very common thing, right? Florida, at the end of the half, is the worst thing I've ever seen, right? Every single time when Florida gets the ball with under 2 minutes left, they're content running the ball. And if they break a long run, then maybe they get a little bit more aggressive. But they are just so conservative to a fault, too. It's fine to be a conservative play caller. It's fine to have a conservative offense. It's not fine to be conservative to a fault, which is what Billy Napier tends to be as a play caller in those final 2 minutes of the first half. It's just bad, boring, and ineffective. Okay? So Florida needs to stop accepting defeat, basically, and stop just rolling over and be like, oh, well, we'll go to halftime every time that you get into the 2-minute warning, right? Big play off a turnover. Look at I forget. I always confuse a couple of games with this. I think it was Vanderbilt 2023, if I'm not mistaken. They get a pick. What do? Trick play with Khalil Jackson there, which I'm all for a trick play. I'm all for breaking something out of a bag. I am not all for, or I'm all for a shot play or breaking something out. I am not for saying, hey, we're going to throw the ball with a wide receiver here on first down after we force a turnover. The Florida State double reverse, whatever the hell that was, that Florida failed miserably, and every other team that's run it since has run it to damn near perfection. It's very frustrating with that. But So he doesn't know how to capitalize on those moments consistently enough. He isn't aggressive enough as a play caller. Does a lot of things that probably just shouldn't be done, right? And one of the biggest reasons, and I do think that the biggest reason Billy Napier should give up play calling is because this program has far too many organizational issues that if Billy gave up play calling duties, he could focus on those. The middle eight, burning timeouts because of communication issues, such as not even getting the call to the quarterback, whoever it may be at that point, until there's, 22 seconds left. He starts talking and giving the call. And, you're supposed to not just give the play call. You're supposed to also give, a little bit of a message with it. So there's that. The special teams miscues of not having the right number of players on the field, but also in general, the team not showing up. This is a good roster. Don't forget, this is a great roster. 2024's roster was a very good roster. Okay, they had holes and that were glaring and were going to limit their ceiling, sure. But the roster itself looks really good. We talked about this the other day. Coaching needs to catch up to the roster. That's what it is. Coaching needs to catch up to the talent on this roster. Because right now, think about the games where you could say, hey, the team didn't show up to play, or you lost because of poor play calling, poor coaching. Tennessee this year, without a doubt, you lost because of poor coaching. Those players played their asses off. Texas A&M this year, I think you lost because of poor coaching and the team not showing up to play for a full 60 minutes. Miami team didn't show up. Texas team didn't show up. Which, that one, even if you want to excuse Texas, that's still 3 games that we've already talked about where your team either didn't show up or you lost because of coaching. I'm not saying you lost Miami because your team didn't show up. You could have very well lost that game regardless of if they showed up. But they didn't. Your team didn't show up, right? So Texas A&M, Miami, Tennessee, games where you lost because either coaching or the team didn't show up. 2022 Vanderbilt, 2023 Arkansas, 2023 Utah. There have been far too many games during Billy Napier's tenure where it feels like the team just doesn't show up. 2022 and 2023 Kentucky. 2022 USF, you won, but you won by a field goal against USF, coached by Jeff Scott. Not even when they're looking pretty decent right now. Coached by Jeff Scott. Not Golish, Jeff Scott. That's what we're talking about. Those games you can't have. You can't have a schedule like Florida has, and just any given week your team could not show up. Can't. And another thing for why Billy needs to give it up, great head coaches that are play callers, when they give up play calling? When it's time to give up play calling, right? When you've not done enough to get your guys where they need to go. When it's better for your team for you to give up play calling. That's when great head coaches give up play calling duties. Okay? When bad head coaches give up play calling duties? They don't. They get fired before they do that. I don't want that. I want Billy to succeed here. Right? But it's time to give it up. It's time to give up play calling duties. Your team will be better without it. And this is a thing where I say all the time, I say all coaches have egos. And you need an ego to be a successful head coach. I don't doubt that at all. But when your ego gets in the way of your success, that's an issue. And I don't say ego as negative as I think a lot of other people say it. I think it's good to have an ego, right? But you don't want your ego to get in the way of your success. And I think for Billy Napier, it's doing that if you don't give up play calling duties. I get it. I get saying, oh, yeah, the offense is fine, right? Sure, we'll talk about that. We'll get to that next. But the offense might not be as awesome as he's trying to convey. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Gators. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Are you tired of the endless waiting, wondering, and worrying about your taxes? Well, now that's a thing of the past. You see, taxes don't need to be complicated or stressful. TurboTax is here to change the game by matching you with a TurboTax expert who can get to work on your return right away. No more waiting for answers. No more going, oh, yeah, well, you'll get an answer in the next 24 hours. Give us some time. No more wondering if you're missing out on deductions. Whether you've got one form or 20, TurboTax experts give your taxes their undivided attention while you get real-time updates on their progress. So you can focus on what really matters. You won't have to lift a finger, but you'll get the peace of mind knowing that your taxes are being handled by the pros. So if you're ready for stress-free taxes and money back guaranteed, head over to TurboTax.com today and get matched with your expert who's ready to take your taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day. Only available at TurboTax live full service real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details for TurboTax.com/guarantees. Thanks for being Locked On Gators, your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. And we're going to talk a little bit about if you're unfamiliar with Astute Alligator on Twitter, just look up Astute Alligator. Oftentimes throws out stats and data and information to just help you, right? To just give context to things. And yesterday afternoon, Astute Alligator tweeted out from an advanced metrics perspective over Billy Napier's last 8 years as the offensive play caller, we'll say, what the stats look like. And I'm not going to talk much about Arizona State. That was almost a decade ago, right? It's not relevant. Times have changed since then. Okay. We're not going to talk much about University of Louisiana. That's a Group of 5 program. We're in the SEC. It's different there. But what I will say is that last year, one of the reasons when Billy Napier was talking about why he wasn't going to give up play calling, one of the reasons was that, look at the statistics, right? The offense is good. Look at the statistics. We're fine, right? Look at the statistics. We're fine. Look at the analytics. We're fine. Look at the metrics. We're fine. Okay, well, let's look at the statistics, right? 2022 at Florida. Florida's total offense under Billy Napier had an FEI of 20. It was ranked 25th in the country. Then 2023 it was ranked 36th and then 49th. That's a decrease year after year after year. All right. SP plus decrease year after year after year. Year after year and then a slight bump increase. EPA per play. Down, down, down. Passing offense got better in 2023 and then took another dip in 2024. Rushing offense has gotten worse in EPA per rush 2022, 2023, 2024. Success rate got better every single year. And a big reasoning for that, of course, is that in 2022, Florida had the fourth highest EPA per rush. You know why they had that? Because they had Anthony Richardson, who would rush and outrun everybody, right? You look at the Utah game. You look at the Texas A&M game when they ran that split zone read and Jonathan Odom intentionally went by the guy he was supposed to block because he was like, that guy's not catching AR. And then he went downfield to block that. Yeah. You had that explosive player. I get it. Your run game's going to look great. Your passing game's going to look worse because of it. I understand that. I'm not trying to knock everything that they do. I'm trying to add context to things. But a big reason when Billy Napier was defending why he would still be an offensive play caller was look at the numbers. Well, EPA per play, 78th this year. They were 35th in 2022, 37th in 2023. Sorry, adjusted EPA per play. 35th in 2022, 37th in 2023, 78th in 2024. 78th. Not a good number, obviously, right? Not where you want to be when you are in the SEC. Not where you want to be if you're a Power 4 program. Not where you want to be if you're a successful Power 4 program. And not where you want to be if you're a successful SEC program. So, not an ideal situation, right? If your big selling point is look at the offense and all the metrics get worse, look at the offense. Right? You were in the top 40 in adjusted EPA per play for 2 previous years. Now you're 78th. In his 3 years at the University of Florida as the offensive play caller, he's got 1 year with a top 50 success rate throwing the football, and it was 2023 with Graham Mertz. 1 year with a top 50 success rate running the football, and it was 2024. Because don't forget, the offense, or the Florida Gators rushing offense in 2022 wasn't amazing. It was just really explosive, and that was what made them be as great as they looked. Like, the numbers looked way better than they were because it wasn't a consistent thing, right? The numbers looked way better than the team actually was in EPA per rush, right? Florida wasn't ripping off huge runs by everybody. It was guys who would pick up yards where they could. Montrell had explosive plays. Trevor Etienne had explosive plays. Not really a ton of huge, long rushing touchdowns, but big chunk plays. AR had the explosive rushing plays that went for the touchdowns. But this wasn't some amazing offense in any year under Billy Napier. Again, that 2022 offense was just explosive. That's it. In 2022, Florida had a 96th percentile explosive rushing attack, 84th percentile explosive passing attack, and 98th percentile explosive offense overall. It was explosive, not consistent. Okay? Their success rate was not good. Passing success rate was in the 29th percentile. That's not good, right? Like we can acknowledge that that's not a good area to be in, but that happened quite a bit for Florida. And when you're reliant on those big explosive plays and you can't put together another offense, it's tough. That was the thing that we talked about this year a lot with DJ Lagway. I kept talking about how this offense isn't sustainable. You can't go, hey, we're either going to go 3 and out or we're going to score right away. That's not sustainable. That's not successful. That's not good offense. It's time to get a play caller that can play to the strengths of your team. It's time to get a play caller that raises your ceiling and your floor. This is the time where you have to look at this offense and you have to say, all right, I'm not getting it done. Because again, now you're at the point where it is not the players. It's not, oh, he's got too many Mullen guys. Oh, he had to scramble to put together a class in 2022. It's not that anymore. The roster's really good. They've done a great job of building the team. But now coaching needs to catch up to the talent. And you did a bit of that by adding Will Harris and Gerald Chapman. I'm a big fan of Jonathan DeCoster, but we'll see long-term what they're like. But now it's time for the rest of your coaching staff to catch up to the talent on this team because you've built a great roster, Billy. The thing holding them back at this point in the game is you. I have some suggestions for things. Obviously, we're talking about offensive play caller and a couple scheme changes. I would like to see them modernize a little bit. We'll talk about those when we get back with Locked On Gators. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets whether you win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Next week, Locked On Gators, your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And like we've been talking about, Florida Gators need a new offensive play caller, right? And when we talk about the offensive play caller, everyone, I feel like, talks about some specific names, which we'll talk about specific names next week, okay? Some tells me we're going to have a little bit of time before there's an announcement there, so we'll talk about it next week. And if I'm wrong there, I'll be happy to be wrong about not having time before that. But personally, I would look outside of the University of Florida for it. If it's Russ, then it's Russ. Because again, my biggest complaint is just that I don't think Billy can handle the play calling duties and head coach duties. And I think Billy's a bad play caller. So if you can change those where, hey, Billy's not the play caller at all anymore, and hey, Billy doesn't have to worry about play calling duties and head coaching duties, then for me, I think that raises your ceiling up enough. I think that could make you get into that contender window, playoff window, which, by the way, roster-wise, your expectations for 2025 are playoffs, or at least my expectations for the University of Florida in 2025, playoffs. If it's Russ, then it's Russ. He's got some play calling experience, probably spread out the offense a little bit, which I know a bunch of Gators fans would love. But personally, I would look outside of Florida. I would look outside of the University of Florida, and I would look for someone that you think is, hey, it's a good football mind, preferably has multiple years of offensive play calling experience, and is capable of using a quarterback, not a quarterback like DJ Lagway, but with the skill set that DJ Lagway has. Connects on the deep ball pretty consistently, one of the best deep ball passers in the entire country, best deep ball passing freshman in the entire country, and can run, but that's not his... I don't know how to describe it. That's not a big part of his game, right? Like, he can run, but he likes to run when he has to run. Quarterback. Like, he's a quarterback. He can run, sure, but he is a quarterback. He wants to throw the football. You got to get someone that can use that while also saying, hey, we've got some good weapons at every position on offense. How do we get them the ball to find success? I'm fine with whatever that may be. If you want to go, hey, we're going to take deep shots, attack with screens, attack with the run game, and we're going to do that. If it's successful, great. Like if you can figure out how to get those things consistently going and take deep shots, that's fine by me. You can run, hey, when we run the ball, it's going to be an option or an RPO. And if he throws it, he throws it. We're going to take deep shots whenever we can. We're going to try to lull you in, take deep shots. Or you could just say, hey, we're going to take deep shots and try to make you prioritize that, and then we're going to kill you underneath. It's possible as well, right? Again, next week we'll talk about some specific names. If you have suggestions for people you'd like to talk about, let me know. And we can at least talk about them, right? We can at least write them off on the show. But Florida, you need an offensive play caller. Some scheme changes I would like to see. I am a huge fan of 12 personnel. I have never in my life been shy about that, and I will never be shy about that, okay? 12 personnel works. I don't care how you feel. I don't care. 12 personnel works. It's a fact, okay? And I know that there was the article, I think it was from ESPN, talking about Ohio State using 12 personnel. And it was basically, and there were people saying, hey, Billy doesn't need to change that, right? 12 personnel is not an issue. Look at how Ohio State's doing it. Whatever the point of that was, it didn't help the case, okay? 12 personnel is not the issue. Florida needs to embrace space more, okay? And we've talked about this offense as being Shanahan-esque, and we'll talk about more changes that we need to see with the offense as well. I'm fine with it being Shanahan-esque, but here's the thing. First off, the Shanahan offense really got great with a McVay twist to it, right? McVay, Shanahan, they're the guys that are pioneers of it. But even they don't run it the way that Florida runs it, right? Even they don't run it the way that Billy Napier runs it. The guys who built it run it differently. Sean McVay, he uses pre-snap motion a ton still. Not so much a wide zone guy. He switched to one of the more gap-heavy run games in the NFL last year. Ran duo more than anyone. Sean McVay doesn't do Kyle Shanahan doesn't do the condensed sets as much as he used to. You know why he doesn't do that? Because when he would get in those condensed sets, Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs, essentially said, you know what, get in condensed sets. I'm going to blitz the hell out of you. And before you could even get anything going, there's a mess and you're on the ground. Look at the Chiefs 49ers, I think it was 2 years ago. They kept coming out in these condensed sets, and Steve Spagnuolo was like, okay, Trent McDuffie, hope you're ready to blitz because you're going to be doing it a lot. And when the 49ers would come out in these condensed sets, they'd blitz the nickel. They'd blitz the safety. They'd blitz fast people who could get there before you can make a play. because they got to be in there to cover the running back anyway, to cover the tight ends anyway. So 12 personnel is perfectly fine, especially if you have a guy like Amir Jackson who's a great athlete. But you need to embrace space more. That's these 12 personnel is not the issue. Also, I will say condensed sets aren't an issue in your offense, but they can't be your offense. You can't do pistol condensed sets. That stuff's not going to work. Okay? You got to spread things out a bit. You need to embrace space. And I will say, Florida in 2024 found a lot of success running counter, running split zone, running pin pull, and when they ran duo. But here's the thing. They didn't run those enough. Some games, they really leaned into counters. Some games, they really leaned into split zone. You look at the Kentucky game, they were just hammering counter, split zone. They were getting after it. There were multiple games where they just hammered those concepts, and they were really well. They worked really well. But you got to run them more, okay? You talk to NFL and college running backs, and I mean, even tight ends. But we've asked Hayden about it this year. And we're like, hey, what's your favorite run concept? For Hayden, I asked, what's your favorite run concept to block? And he said it's duo. He said you could run duo against any front. You just got to fit it up different ways. But you can run duo against any front. And you can execute that way. I spoke to, it was Eric Gray with the New York Giants and Joshua Kelly, who's another NFL running back that's bounced around. I spoke with both of them about, hey, what's your favorite run concept to run? Both of them, duo. Duo is taking over football right now. Okay, it's the new trend. Add more of it to your game plan. Okay, you need to adapt. The scheme is good in its principles, but you need to adapt. Even the guys that built the scheme are adapting the scheme. You need to adapt a little bit more. And they've adapted a little bit, again, leaning into some of the counter, more split zone. They've added pin pull to the offense. They've added duo to the offense. But you got to keep adding and keep innovating and keep adapting, or you die. That's how football is. Adapt or die. Those are your two options. And so Florida, you need a new offensive play caller. Offensive adjustments need to be made. We'll talk about scheme changes. We'll talk about the offensive play callers next week. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever it's in the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back whenever. We're back at the absolute latest. We'll be back Monday. But if there's news, we just might be back. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I'll see you all next time.